Hi there, I'm Amy or AWayfaringFrog and welcome back to the channel, and welcome if you're new here. Today I'm bringing to you another Sims 4 speed build, and it's going to be another renovation one. This one I was never requested for. I have been requested to rebuild Vlad's house from the Vampire game pack, but this one I ended up just doing because basically my sim in my own gameplay had become friends with CATARINA LYNX'S since my sim lived in Brindleton Bay, and as a result I just felt like redoing Catarina's house. So that is the one that we're doing. It's in Brindleton Bay, in the Wiskerman's Wharf neighbourhood, and she lives on this lot which is kind of on the dock in that part of the world, and it's quite an interesting lot because it's surrounded by wood. Unfortunately though, we don't have that same wood tile that you can see around within the world to be able to place onto the edges of this lot to blend it in a bit more seamlessly, but I did my best with that, so you'll see that a little bit later. But for now, you can see that since this is a renovation, I did start with the pre-existing build, which is the one that will be in your game when you first boot up the game with cats and dogs installed, which is the expansion pack that this world is in. And I did change the shape of it quite a bit. I didn't really understand what they were going for originally, and I wasn't sure how to improve upon it as it was. So I wanted to do something a little bit more different, but I kind of tried to keep the same colour scheme, both on the exterior and interior throughout as well. I also noticed that Catarina seemed to have a little table of flowers that she had outside of her house. I do take a while to remember to include that though. That is pretty much the last part of the speed build. I'll add that into the front a lot later on. But for now, I am just picking out a few colours here and there. I wasn't sure which blues to go for. There are some really nice swatches from Cats and Dogs. They're sort of a nice subtle blue, they're not too bright. So I was going around fiddling with that. And then on the side of the build, where the back garden is, I put this little kind of balcony area as well, which you can access from the second floor, specifically from the master bedroom, so where I envision Catarina would sleep. I do kind of realise later on though that it's not actually centred with the rest of the building, so I extend that a lot later on when I end up decorating the garden. I was kind of a bit unsure on what I wanted to do in certain places, so I do jump around a bit. I start the exterior, as you can see here, and then I end up doing a bit of the interior, and then I do the garden, so hopefully it's fairly easy to follow, but I pretty much just wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the garden for a while. It stays in the same spot as it is now. I just extended it slightly since there were a few tiles that I could push it out towards in order to get a little bit more space. The build itself as well ends up being a lot bigger than the one that comes just in Cats and Dogs, because I end up having it to be 2 bedrooms, and then there's another room upstairs as well which you could convert to a bedroom if you wanted, but I ended up just making it into an office with another cat condo. Because if you weren't aware, Catarina Lynx is pretty much the crazy cat lady of Brindleton Bay. She's got, I think, 4 cats when you visit her, or just when you load into the lot. I think one of them is a kitten, and then she's got 3 other cats. I can't quite remember what all their names are. And then as a result, the way she dresses is very cat heavy. I think she's got a jumper that's covered in cats. She clearly really needs lots of furniture for the cats as well, so I went through and added plenty of cat condos and little pet beds around. So it was quite a fun one to do. This is also another build that I did before 2025, so this is still not a build I have done in this year, which I find kind of funny because I don't know, I think when Life and Death came out, I got so excited about that pack that I built so much around its release, and as a result I just kind of didn't get around to posting some of the other builds that I'd been doing. But due to the holidays I have been quite busy, so I haven't been able to record as much, so here we go. They're all coming out now. But this is the last build that I had done in 2024. I actually did it before the cat cafe, I think, that I posted last week, but I've only just got around to doing the voiceover for it. I am actually also moving house myself at the end of January, so I am currently trying my best to pre-record as much as possible so that I don't have to worry too much about the weeks when I'll be moving in. So I will let you know if for whatever reason I don't manage to get a video out on a particular week, but I'm doing my best so that I can continue with regular uploads because I do really enjoy doing it and I just don't like the idea of missing an upload for some reason. So I want to make sure that I get those out. But at this stage in the build, we've pretty much got the exterior look going. I did fiddle around with this chimney a lot though. It kept glitching weirdly, like the lighting looked a little bit odd because of where I'd put it, and I had to raise it up on a platform a little bit, and then it kept deleting itself. So it does stay there for the version that's uploaded to the gallery, but you might see me fiddling with it a little bit, or you might notice that it disappears at some point, but it will end up being put back. I also messed around with this gate at the front of the lot just because this base game fence I find is a bit of a nightmare because it's got those poles that go across the fence and you can't easily choose where they go. And there was just one so close to where I wanted to put the gate and it just looked a little bit odd because two poles were too close together. So I was just not sure where to put the gate to try and cover that up, but I think I figured it out in the end. Whilst this isn't a limited pack build either per se, at least I didn't intend for it to be limited. Usually when I do renovations, I just use any pack that I have, which because I've been collecting them over the years, it's pretty much all of them at this point. I didn't really worry too much about that, but because I ended up realizing partway through the build, I'd actually kept to just a few select packs, predominantly Parenthood, Seasons, and then Cats and Dogs, of course. I ended up not using too many in the end, so there are about maybe 6 or 7 packs that I used total. So hopefully if you did want to download this, that's really useful for you if you don't have all of the packs. I think most of the ones that I used aren't particularly recent packs at all, so that should be helpful for you if you did want to get it yourself. And you can just grab this on the Sims 4 gallery as usual under my EAID, which is AWayfaringFrog. You can also find it under the hashtag AWayfaringFrog, and as always, that information is in the description down below. I do also feel like I've suddenly gone into a bit of a blue area of building because this is another blue build. Partly that's Catarina's fault though, since that is the colour scheme that she had by default anyway. So I didn't pick it necessarily, but there are some really great blues in Cats and Dogs, so I'm not complaining. But then last week I did a pastel blue cat cafe using the Cozy Bistro kit. I've just finished building something for Julian, which is that unicorn character from Animal Crossing, if you play that. And because he's got a very sort of aqua blue colour scheme, that's another blue house, so that will be going up next week. So if you're not already, be sure to subscribe and enable notifications to the channel so you can see when I upload that. That one was a request from a user. I can't remember their username off the top of my head, but I'll be sure to give them a shout out in next week's video. I'm really excited for that one because I haven't built a horse ranch at all for YouTube. I've done it before I started YouTube, so that's really exciting. But anyway, enough about next week's build. At the moment, we are now jumping inside to do the interior decorating, and I started with this hallway area. It's fairly simple. I just included a little seat for your Sims to sit down and put their shoes on, or at least that's the make-believe scenario since they don't actually do that. And then I included a few clutter pieces, including that season's decoration box, so that on certain holidays you'd be able to decorate the exterior of your house with fairy lights and things. Or not even on a holiday, you can do that whenever you want, which is quite fun. And then into the kitchen, and I'm using the Parenthood countertops. I really love these ones. The only thing is I find them a little bit difficult to use because of the glass pieces on the overhead cabinets. I think I've mentioned this in another video when I've used them. They're just, because they didn't want to make the glass too high resolution, I suppose, I think they've just made it like a weird blue square. So I find these cabinets really hard to use because they have such an aqua blue colour to them. So I generally will only ever use them if I'm going for a blue colour scheme in a build, and as you can see in this one, it works perfectly. And the blue is pretty much the same swatch as the assets from Cats and Dogs, so they combine really well. I also just really love this kind of terrazzo countertop that they've got. It's one of my favourite things about the Home Chef Hustle kitchen counters as well, because they have some swatches with that same terrazzo effect, and it's just so pretty. And we don't really have that many countertops with that sort of detailing on it, so it's nice to have those in the game for sure. And speaking of decorating, I've been doing so much more in Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete. Since it hit January, we've got a whole host of new fun items. I mean, a lot of them are recycled from when the game was free. But if you do play that game at all, or you're just interested in seeing Animal Crossing content whenever, even just Sims content, I post a lot on my, well, not a lot probably, but I sometimes post on my Blue Sky just about what I'm getting up to, including some just fun little pictures of builds that are in progress and such. So be sure to go check my page out there. I'd love it if you came to say hi. My Blue Sky is just AWayfaringFrog, and I also have an Instagram, although I mostly just post pictures of the builds that I do on there rather than other things from other games that I like to play. But I'd love to see you there on either platform. You can just find the links for those social media accounts in the description down below. But now we've pretty much cluttered this kitchen up with everything that I wanted to include here. I just added a coffee maker. I felt like Katarina would be a coffee drinker. I'm not so sure if she is or not. I don't think she came with any skills from memory, so there wasn't a lot to go off. I did also play around with this little planter pot from the Blooming Rooms kit, and the pot itself is a little head of an animal, and then it's got like a pretty flower or a plant coming out of it. I was really hoping there'd be a cat version, but unfortunately it's just sort of hedgehogs, pigs and dogs, I think. But I did end up adding one of those into the corner of the room just for a little bit of fun, since even though it's not a cat, we can pretend. I think I picked the one that looks like a pig, so it's kind of like a cat. It's really not. But anyway, we're now into the dining room area, and again I just went for pretty much the cats and dogs assets, as well as I think the table might be from Parenthood, or that one also could be from Cats and Dogs. I think the Parenthood one is very similar. And the yellow curtains that I've added are from Seasons, but I end up switching those out for the ones from Cats and Dogs later. I wasn't fully paying attention when I put them up. I just thought, okay, I want some yellowy curtains, and I know the Seasons pack has some like kind of pale pastel coloured ones, so I'll just use those. And then a lot later, I end up discovering the Cats and Dogs ones, which I very rarely use, so I sort of forgot what swatches it had and end up replacing all of the curtains that I've got with those ones. Since I barely use them, it makes sense to at least include them in this build, as it's very Cats and Dogs heavy, which was the intention here. And just cluttering up this dining room, I added a few of these cat sculptures. They're in pretty much every room. I thought they were really fun, and I used all of the different swatches across the spaces. Oh, and I just got rid of that little animal planter that I thought I kept. It was a hedgehog though, so still nothing like a cat. That's probably why I ended up getting rid of it at the time. But you can also see that I've gone for kind of a bluey yellow colour scheme throughout. I think that's such a fun colour combo, and again, I just felt like it suited CATARINA LYNX'S, and it is also just generally very that colour scheme from Cats and Dogs. They seem to have a lot of very washed out, or washed out makes it sound like a negative thing, but very kind of less vibrant colours. So the blue that you can see throughout isn't too in your face. It's just a very kind of neutral blue, I guess. I don't know how else to describe that. The living room I was a little bit unsure on for a while, just because whilst it's just a rectangle, it feels like it's too long and kind of skinny. And then I couldn't find a rug that I liked that would match this couch. That swatch of the sofa I've used, which is again from Cats and Dogs, that's pretty much the only swatch I like from this pack. I'm not really a fan of that style in general, and then a lot of the other swatches have some kind of stripiness to them, and I'm just not a fan. This one, again, because of the colour, I think it just worked the best anyway. But due to that, I was just really struggling to find a rug that suited well. So I did trial this one from base game for a bit first, but I felt like the room was then too blue. In terms of activities for your Sims as well, I made sure to include a bookshelf. Of course, there's cat items here, so your pets will have plenty of space to play around. And it looks like I did end up changing that rug. I think this one is from Seasons. So yeah, I think that is the better choice rather than that base game one. I also included a knitting basket for activities for your Sims, whilst obviously Katarina wouldn't have a skill in knitting since they're different packs, so she wouldn't be able to access that if you only had cats and dogs. I thought it was a fun addition, and I feel like even if she doesn't knit, I believe she'd just probably buy a ball of yarn or lots of balls of yarn for her cats to play with, since they do really love that. Whenever I'm crocheting at my parents' house, since I sadly don't have a pet of my own, their cats just love trying to get in on whatever I'm crocheting. So I think it's a lot of fun though. I don't mind too much. And then I did add a few planter boxes outside. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I do kind of jump between the outside and inside occasionally. Just when I was unsure on what it was I wanted to decorate, I switched between the two. But these planter boxes are from cats and dogs, and I find them just a bit too vibrant. The green looks too plastic, and then as much as I love daffodils, they just weren't working, so I ended up going for the planter boxes from base game. I did try really hard to use the ones from cats and dogs, A, because I've never used them before, and B, because they come from the pack that this house is in, or at least this house is in the world that's from that pack. But I just couldn't. I think it looks better with the base game ones, and the base game at least, so you don't need a pack to be able to get those planter boxes, which is nice. Though they are quite expensive, in comparison at least to the other planters in the game. But in the bathroom, I used the Parenthood shower tub combo. I really liked the curtain on it. It felt very realistic. We don't really have many items like that. A lot of the swatches on that particular item are a bit too vibrant for my tastes. You kind of need a very particular style of build to be able to use it, but that blue one is quite nice and neutral. And of course, it matched the colour scheme that we were going for in here. And then the ensuite, I struggled a bit because it's a really funny shape. It's like a long kind of Z. So I did manage to fit a bathtub and a shower in here, and your sim can route all the way through. So it might look like the toilet could be in the way because it's a bit close to the bathtub, but I promise it works, so there aren't any issues in that regard. As always, I make sure to playtest my builds because there's nothing worse than trying to play in a house and your Sims are just complaining about something, but you don't necessarily know what it is they're complaining about, and it just makes the game not very fun. So I like to try and make sure that everything is perfectly usable in the builds that I create. And into the master bedroom then, I ended up going with a slightly more green colour scheme in here. I was originally going to use the patchwork coloured bed, but this green one was just so pretty and I really liked the paler wood colour. So I went ahead with this, and I think it's just a bit of fun difference to the rest of the house. And it goes with the blue quite nicely. I think the rug that I've added, despite the rug not having any green in it, I feel like it just somehow worked with that bed and then tying in the wallpaper that I used. So I thought it was a bit of fun. I do also end up adding a bit of clutter onto the floor of this room later on. I remembered while I was decorating one of the other rooms that Katarina kind of had a few sort of bits of like messy clutter, and because of that I ended up adding in, I think it's either from base game or Parenthood, but there's an item that just looks like a pile of clothing on the ground, like someone's just got ready for the end of the day and just strewn their clothes from that day onto the floor next to the bed. So I do add those a lot later on. I also realised a bit later that I'd forgotten to decorate the bedside table, so I will pop back into the main bedroom a bit later when I realised that. But otherwise the hallway is very simple. There wasn't a lot of space in here due to all the doors, so I just added this little bureau with a nice big picture above it and then a little item for the bathroom. Since there wasn't much storage in the bathroom, I felt like it was kind of realistic to at least include something outside of that. And then the guest bedroom, since Katarina lives alone with her 4 cats, I figured that this other room would just make sense to be a guest bedroom, since there's no one that she would be living with otherwise, unless you make that happen in your own gameplay. Or I suppose if Neighbourhood Stories make something happen, but then at least they'll have a bedroom that they can stay in. So I didn't clutter this one up too much because I didn't envision it being inhabited by a particular sim, So I included just a few items, both from Parenthood and mostly cats and dogs again. And I think it looked really cute. And again, the colour scheme of this matches the rest of the house quite well. It also gave me the opportunity to use some of the other items from Cats and Dogs, like the side tables that I've got in here. I'm not a massive fan of them, but I think they worked well in that particular room. And the rug that I used, which looks a bit like an avocado, but a blue one, that is from Seasons, and that's not something I use very often, so it was quite fun to be able to include that here. And now, after just starting the office area, I realised at this point that I hadn't done any clutter on the master bedroom bedside table. So I just added a few little pieces in here from the Everyday Clutter kit. And then, again, the same kind of curtains that I've been using through the rest of the house end up going into this space. And because I don't remember what career that Katarina has at this stage, I will have definitely looked that up when I was renovating the build, but she may also not have had a particular career. So I can't remember, but either way it felt like a good idea to include a computer for her. So I just added in some cat condos behind her, including a litter box so her pets can be with her while she works or plays games, whatever it is that she wants to do on this computer. I'm not so sure about how it would be sitting on your computer with a litter box behind you. I can't imagine this room smells particularly nice to want to spend too much time in it, but I figured that she loves cats so much that it's not too much of a problem. And in the actual build as well, the default build, she had a lot of posters up in her house, so I didn't really put any in her bedroom. So as a result, to kind of reflect that, I guess, more childish part of her, I don't know if it's childish to have posters, I don't think it is, but I wanted to include those as well in the office space to kind of tie that back. And now, since I finished the interior decorating, I'm back outside and just sorting out the garden area. I kept this long planter area in the back of the garden that was already there and just added in a few different plants, brought in more of that yellow that I had throughout the rest of the house, and then extended the back garden a little bit here on the side just to add a little bit more greenery. I think I do actually end up taking out the taller hedges and then just cutting the little planter area down by one strip of tile. So just the yellow flowers are there because I wanted to include the flower arranging table. Again, it just seemed like a fun little extra skill building item for your Sims in here. And it just seemed like it might fit Katarina's lifestyle. She seems to me like kind of a crafty Sim at least. And it was around here, when I started putting the lights around the build, that I realised this little porch area wasn't centred with the rest of the house, and it just looked weird. It didn't look intentional, so I wanted to make it centred. So I've just widened that a tiny bit and then started adding a few details up, including this little faux roof piece, or I don't know what you'd call one of those, but the little roof above the double doors that lead onto the balcony from the master bedroom. I added a little chess table up there so it's usable. And then I just went through and added a few extra details here and there, including that table I mentioned with the flowers on. But at this stage, we are coming to the end of the speed build portion of the video, so if you did enjoy it, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and enable notifications so you'll know when I next post a video. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this build and what builds you'd like to see me create in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye for now!